Today we're going to learn how to adjust neck seals and wrist seals for fit, and this includes our latex wrist seals and our latex neck seals. Dry suits that are equipped with a latex neck seal will look like this, and these are options on all of Mustang's dry suits. You can choose between your latex or your adjustable or your latex or neoprene. All of the latex neck seals and wrist seals are molded with rings that are used to help trim evenly and help choose which size you might need for your wrist. So when you put a dry suit on, sometimes they can be too tight, and you want to relieve some of that pressure by cutting the wrist back to a wider part of the cone. And the same for the neck seal. So for both cases, we're going to use some simple tools. We have a sharp X-Acto knife. We have a mandrel, either a small plastic cup or a coffee can. I have a cracker can here. So for the neck seal, we'll start with the coffee can. You want to make sure before you do anything with your dry suit or your seal, you've got a clean surface, nothing sharp. No dirt or debris. You may end up pushing down while using the cutter and rolling the can, so you don't want to be damaging your neck seal by rubbing it against something that would be a pebble or a piece of dirt or a sliver. So now that we have a clean area, we also check our mandrel, which should have no sharp edges anywhere along any of the folded metal ridges or the seam that goes up the can. You just do a quick finger, nothing to hurt you. So taking your neck seal, do it inside out so that you can see the ridges better. They actually have a texture to them when they're inside out. Carefully stretch it over your mandrel. And I like to make sure that I'm the same distance from the edge all the way around. And I'll explain why when we get to the cutting phase. So at this point, some people may choose to put a strip of masking tape around where you're going to cut so that you don't accidentally forget which ring you're trying to cut off, or it's easier to follow the line. I'm not going to do that today, but it's very easy to just put a piece of painter's tape or masking tape all the way around, and that lets you trace the tape. But today what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my finger as a guide against the edge of the can as I roll along to cut it. If this were a full dry suit and it was completely attached, you might want to start by pre-twisting the suit in the opposite direction that you're going to cut, because that'll make it easier to untwist as you cut. I'm cheating and using a neck seal that's not attached. So now that you've got your neck seal positioned, you should always cut one ring at a time. It's always possible to repeat this procedure and cut another strip off of the neck seal, but you can't put it back. And if you cut too much and it now won't seal against your neck, you're looking at replacing the neck seal on the rapid repair tooling instead of just cutting for size. Take a sharp X-Acto knife. If this is a razor style, put in a fresh razor. If it's the extended normal X-Acto knife, break a tip off so you're starting with a fresh sharp. Always cut above one of the ridges. The ridges help to keep the strength at the edge of the neck seal because they're a little thicker than the rest of the material. So if you get a nick above them, you can come back afterwards with scissors and trim off a burr or a nick, but stay above that thicker bump. Putting this down to a safe length. So I start anywhere on the neck seal. I'm between two ridges, but closer to the lower ridge. That's the one I want to keep. And just gentle pressure. I just work my way along. Trying my best to be even, but staying between the two molded ridges, and never lifting the knife, keeping constant pressure. And I'm using my other finger as a guide against the can to help keep things straight. That was not straight, but it can be corrected. And you can see how when I finished, I didn't line up at the same place. And that's one reason why people like to use masking tape to be able to do that. But I can simply turn it around and cut back even with where I was. Close all your sharp tools, keep them off your work area. You don't want to puncture your suit. Go around and pull off the layer that you cut off to make sure you've cut it all the way around. See, I've missed a spot on the seam. Got to go back with my knife and just follow the score that I made on the first pass as close as I can. And it will cut through. I'm stuck in the seam. So now I have a completely separate ring. I can take that off. I've done 1/8 is what one of those would be. And you can see I've got a very ugly, awkward step. So using my scissors, I can remove that burr and shape it into the rest of the cut. Burrs are better than nicks, so wherever possible, try to leave a burr, and not a nick can be a sharp that can create a rip later. Sharps off to the side, and I have it trimmed next to you. To repeat the process on a wrist cuff, the only difference is instead of using the large coffee can, we're going to use a smaller water glass, smaller diameter. I like the glass because it's a little more rigid than a plastic cup. You don't have to fight it so much, but I understand some people would rather work with plastic than glass for this operation. So taking a wrist cuff, we've got it inside out so that we can see the ridges. Warm it up, pre-stretch it so it will move over the mandrel a little easier. And then just slide it on and work it away around. We're going to do the same thing we did for the next seal, where we try to even the edge so we can use our finger to help guide the blade. So whenever trimming a latex seal, you want to trim as little as possible. You can always trim more, but you can't add material back. So take your time, make sure everything is even, and then trim one molded ring at a time. Each ring is approximately 1/8 on Mustang dry suits. So if you are familiar with your suit and you know how much material you need to take off and you're feeling brave, you can go right ahead and cut more, but I always try to do one strip at a time just to be safe. I've got a fresh razor in the X-Acto knife, so I've got a good sharp tip. Got a clean work surface with nothing that I could roll the seal against and damage it. So put the glass down on the table. Now just start at one end. And I'm following to the outside of the ridge that I want to keep. It's good to stay above a ridge because the ridge is thicker than the rest of the material and helps prevent tears from any nicks or cuts. If you jump, you can go back to the cut that you had. And just slowly working my way around. I'm using my outside middle finger to help me guide the blade. And I've overlapped where I was before. So now I'm just going to pry away what was cut. Being careful so when I come to a situation where I've got material still attached, and now it's trimmed, but you can see I've got 2 burrs that I'd like to trim off before I finish, and I can do that while it's still on the cup. And this is certainly one of those things that the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. When finished, I pull it off the mandrel, straighten it out, and anything that's uneven, I can come back with scissors and trim off. Just trimming off the burrs. It's better to have a burr than a nick. A nick can lead to a tear, and a burr is just unsightly and a little annoying. Burr. We have a trimmed wrist seal.